Good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the New York Studio School. I'm honored to welcome you to our Spring 2025 Evening Lecture Series. We have a wonderful range of presentations this spring, beginning with tonight's artist talk by Mike Olin. A reminder to everyone in person with us on 8th Street to please silence your cell phones during tonight's event. We'll reserve time at the end for a Q&A with the audience. For everyone in the room, please do remember to raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone to you so that our online audience can also hear your question. For everyone on Zoom, please submit any questions by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Following the lecture, please join us downstairs in the clay room for light refreshments and to continue the conversation. The New York Studio School is grateful to the following funders for their support of the 2024-25 Evening Lecture Series: the National Endowment for the Arts, the New York State Council on the Arts, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, the Robert Lehman Foundation, the Samuel H. Kress Foundation, and many generous individual contributors. Now, I'm delighted to introduce our guest. Mike Olin was born in Pasadena, California, raised in San Diego, and has lived and worked in Bushwick, Brooklyn since 1999. Olin's paintings challenge our notion of a single reading. The work is an embrace of abstraction and landscape, with narrative possibilities which invite the viewer to approach and absorb the work in a variety of ways. Olin has shown his work throughout New York City and internationally for 2 decades. He is currently represented by Peninsula Art Space in Manhattan and Michael David & Co. in Brooklyn. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to Mike Olin.
Hello, everyone. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you, New York Studio School, for giving me this opportunity to kind of go over my paintings and see where I'm coming from. The last time I gave, whoops, we just tried this. See that. Yeah, the button I pressed last time didn't work. What did these? Okay, great, thank you. Last time I gave a talk, I had a different Bruce Nauman quote, but I like this one. I really like Bruce Nauman. He's one of my favorite artists. I live the good life, you live the good life, we live the good life, this is the good life. And, you know, it's true. That's why I like Bruce Nauman. It's really dumb and obvious, but also profound and sublime. He gives you both sides of the coin. So we all here live lives. We live very specific lives. I use my specific life in my work as sort of a tool to try and make my work as unique as I can make it. And I think in individual lives, all of your lives are fascinating. It's really interesting to learn the details of somebody's life and how they go about things. I was born in, as Caitlin said, thank you, Caitlin, for that nice introduction. I was born in Pasadena, California. And my earliest memories were of being on the freeway and seeing lights in the cars and semi-trucks, driving through a tunnel, going from Dodger Stadium to home. There's lights in it. Sometimes we would drive by an airport at night, and there would be blue lights on the tarmac. And I was just like blown away by those dark lights. And I also remember drawing a lot when I was a kid, especially in my grandparents' little TV room. And here's one of those drawings. It's called Here is Car with Pipes, a $2 check winner drawn by Michael Olin, 4.5. I won $2. My grandfather submitted this to the Pasadena Star, a local newspaper. And you can kind of see, well, I like looking at it just for the line quality and kind of the action, the repetition, just the movement of it. I think there's even fire coming out of one of the exhaust pipes. And I must have been watching cars on TV a lot. So this is a year later. For picturing a police car, Mike Olin, 5.5, wins a $2 check. So I had like $4 already by the time I was 5.5. But yeah, you can. I was dealing here with invisible things now, like the kind of emanating light, the exhaust coming out of exhaust pipes, and like some sort of radio conveyance, kind of things going in all directions, and a lot of action, and maybe learning about contrast a little even, but that's definitely California Highway Patrol, the markings of their car. Then, when I was 7, my dad got a job as an assistant baseball coach, and we moved down to San Diego. So right in the middle, you can see the baseball field and the track, and the college is kind of over here on the left. It's on a peninsula in San Diego, and because my parents both worked at the college, I got to go to elementary school nearby at a elementary school called Sunset View, and it was no joke. The sunsets were fantastic, and I saw a lot of them. Even after elementary school, I spent a lot of time on this campus, and I would just wander around do homework until my parents were ready to go home. But this had a big imprint on me, this place, and there's constant cool ocean breeze, waves coming in. You could see the curvature of the earth at the horizon. You could watch sunsets. They were just amazing. And I didn't really know it at the time, but I think it was imprinting on me, like, just the cosmic situation we're all in. Like, wow, we live on a sphere, a planet. I can walk around, and I'm walking on a planet. And to me, that's important, to kind of be grounded that way. It kind of makes other things just not seem so important. But way over, there's a building on the far right. That was my freshman dorm. I ended up going to college here too. But I didn't draw as much. My family was religious. Then scholarship and sports was kind of the 3 main things, and arts really wasn't in the equation as much, but they were very supportive of me doing art, both my parents. And so we had 2 Norman Rockwell posters in our house. This was one of them, and I think I kind of didn't like them. I think I thought it was amazing, like, wow, you can paint figures realistically and stuff. I thought that part was cool, but I knew it was sappy even when I was a kid. So this is something by the time I got to my later years of high school, I started taking a lot more art classes. And this is something I made in high school. I love making spheres, drawing spheres, shading, using transparency, sort of incongruous patterns. And then I ended up becoming an art major in college. And the art department was 17 students, so it was very tiny. My art history teacher was also my painting teacher, but it was great to start learning about art history. I still like Cubism and the ideas behind it, sort of this tie of science and art. And when I had painting 2, I think we learned how to make our own stretchers. And I still kind of like that idea of making stuff from scratch. And we were supposed to cut this bevel, put this bevel on the outside of the painting, and then put the canvas over it. But I put the bevel on the wrong edge, and it had rounded edges. So right from the beginning, I was like making mistakes. So there was a planter box, and there was cedar chips, and I went and stuffed cedar chips in the sides to make it more taut, and that you can see that there. And I kind of highlighted it with gypsum powder. So this is about 6 feet tall. I think most of these early ones I'm showing are 6 feet tall. That's a painting I just got at a thrift store. So I did this for a while. My art history stopped at pop art and Andy Warhol, but I did get some Jasper Johns and Rauschenberg influence. And up at the top there's like old headlights from old cars. I would go to junkyards, and I really liked old stuff because San Diego was mostly, my experience of it was very clean and new. There's a muffler. I used coffee grounds to make kind of a drip there. So I was just experimenting a lot. This is a cow tongue. I made a spike to put it on, just trying things. I just immediately wanted to put stuff on the paintings. This is from an illustration in a book. I've never lived in snow, but I wanted to make a snow scene. This is also about 6 feet tall. And then I was also making little figures. So over here on the left, there's a little mark here. It's a dog running around. So it's kind of had this idea of a small figure on a big ground. I became interested in conceptual art, and so this is, I ordered some vinyl letters and went to Tijuana to get frames, started mixing sand in my paint. I found stuff at the, behind the theater department, and I put wheels on it. I made a handle, and there's an illustration of the magnetosphere of Uranus that I put on there, and put arrows and airplane again. And then I made this, and this painting was important for me. It has a vitrine, a plexiglass vitrine with velvet, and it's padded, and there's a curtain. And there's just a pebble I got from a restaurant, near a restaurant where I was working. And I was sort of thinking about words, and it's like, well, who decides how big a pebble is? And where does a word start and end? Where does any word start and end? Like, what's the parameters, and who decides? And so I realized, like, I was getting into conceptual art and stuff. They had this big show in LA called Reconsidering the Object of Art. It was at the Temporary Contemporary, which is now the Geffen. And it was a huge survey show, and I was really influenced by it. Seeing all these people dealing with ideas and challenging everything about art, the object quality of it and all that. And I liked that. I liked challenging it. I was still learning all these things. So this was, I think, around 1995. It was right before, somehow this is what got me into graduate school. So I went to graduate school in southeastern Ohio. In between undergrad and graduate school, I had worked 3 summers in Alaska, including driving there. I had driven in every state by the time I was 24, and followed the Grateful Dead around. And so when I went to graduate school, I just want to paint what makes me happy. So I painted a car. Well, that's actually felt that I riveted on. And just the open road, the desert. I've never felt so free in my life as just driving to the next concert. And it was so fun and such a release. And I love our country. I love driving in the U.S., but I like traveling anywhere, really. And if in the right corner, maybe you can see it says Mike. I think I started to be influenced by a lot of things, or TV and screens, icons, things like that. I was experimenting with putting pigment through doilies, spray paint. all kind of media. This is a watercolor. This is small. This is probably about 5 feet wide. This is about 9 feet wide. And this one has a chrome sphere in it. And I was, again, just experimenting with paints. This yellow part here is silicone mixed with acrylic. And I think I was also starting to get interested in other types of art. Like I was learning about like the Northern Song landscapes, paintings I thought were beautiful. And part of the deal going to my graduate school is we had to take classes, graduate level classes in another department. So I chose philosophy, and I ran into Descartes, and I loved it, but I was also questioning it, like why do we have to have cardinal directions? We live in the universe, space is like expanding and doesn't. So I'm like, well, I can make. Why does everything have to be a rectangle? So I made this painting. It had wrinkles in it, but I kind of didn't mind the wrinkles. I wasn't planning on the wrinkles, but I just kind of left them just the way I left the stretcher bars showing. So again, I made a plywood mold for this. This is about 5.5 feet diameter, and I milled my own beech wood and cut strips around the mold and glued it, clamped it, and stretched it, and it was like a drum, and I really liked this piece, and it was so fun just to make something from scratch. But I was getting interested in shaped paintings a lot. But my committee, my graduate committee is like, well, you can't just do a best of show for your show. It has to be cohesive. So I had I've been working with a lot of gray tones, and so these are 3 from that show. On the far right is a spiral. The spiral is a form I use over and over still. In the middle is a monster. It has a lot of teeth and it has brushwork. And that one's about 13 feet wide. And then this one is called Whirl. I was getting interested in efficiency and the language of the brush stroke, things like that. And then I graduated, and I wanted to move to New York so bad, but I was scared, and my friend I was going to move with wasn't ready, so I moved to San Diego to make some money, and I worked in lots of different jobs, and one of them was a restaurant, and my friend was letting me stay at their house, which was nice, and sometimes I wouldn't want to bother him, so I would just drive to the desert after a shift at night and just park, just an hour and a half straight east. And in the middle of nowhere, I would climb a little hill with my sleeping bag and just sleep. And so one time I did this, and I loved it. It was just no one around for miles, super quiet. And, I was just kind of getting ready to move to New York. And I woke up, and right by my head, there was a little tiny indentation in the sandstone, like about the size of the tip of your finger, just a little hole. And the sun was coming out at an angle, and it just kind of described the hole so succinctly to me and beautifully. It's just something triggered, something like was set off, and I did a little sketch with it. I think I had a pencil or pen, and I went back to where I was staying, and I had a gouache set, so I did a bunch of gouaches of that experience, and I've been doing kind of that ever since, so that was important. There's another one. And then I finally moved to New York. I moved to Bushwick, as Caitlin said, 1999. I got a loft over by the Morgan stop, and I immediately started making these big paintings of that. I was really excited. And so I did that for a while. I made about 10 of these. I think that's about 9.5 feet tall. And, I'd make my own brushes, and I made these stretchers from scratch. Pretty much, I would rip them and put them together, make the stretchers, and get the surface ready. And it took a lot of work. And I love painting, but that part was so brief compared to everything else. So I was like, maybe I can try and be more standardized and make more rectangles. So I started doing that. I made a lot of kind of brushstroke paintings like this. These are based on dozens and dozens of Sumi ink drawings I was doing. This is about 4 or 5 feet wide. But again, you can kind of see the stretcher bars in there. And I was really interested in kind of the rhythm, how the brushstrokes played off each other, played off the edge, and kind of kept the eye moving. And I still like having the eye move around. But I had been doing black and white and gray tones for about 5 years at this point. So I wanted to get back into color. And this one's about 5 feet wide. You can kind of see the shadow of the stretcher bar behind something I left. But this is sort of from my experience of being a kid and looking at the TV real close and going, wow, it's just 3 colors. How do they do that? And so I just kept painting and learning about painting and color, and there's some ghosts. Again, I like things that kind of are scary in a way. The ghosts are kind of transparent too. If you see them in person, you can kind of see some of the color coming through a little bit better. But there's holes in the eyes. And then I'm like, well, I'll go back and do these in color. I'll do some of these big shape things in color. And my shapes ended up almost always having 7 sides, which I thought was interesting. That kind of happened organically. And so you can see I have like those squiggly worms there. But using color, this took a lot more preparation than the black and white ones. So I did this for another few years. I think this is probably 2003. And most of these still exist. This is about 8 feet tall. This one's about the same. And I would trim the sides of the canvas and expose the wood. And I would also add letters. And this one has vowels, so it's kind of like something soft on the edges. But I started using like information, putting information on the edges. This one has even a broken CD in it. I was using glitter at this point. I had been to the Rubin Museum of Art, which recently closed, and I was looking at this mandala, and it's a really old mandala. And I was like walking by it, and it's like this thing was like flashing at me. And I was like, what? They didn't have glitter. And I asked about it, and it's so old, one of the pigments had crystallized and had facets on it. And I just really loved this interaction between me and this old thing. It was just, I don't know, just a neat correspondence, communion. So I started using more things that were shiny in my work. Not this, though. This was another sort of hole, but this is based on a stadium. And I started learning about the form that I was using over and over, and like it reminded me of a stadium, which is sort of this vehicle for amplifying energy. And you have all these people on the edges in a crowd, and then the business happens in the middle, and it's just sort of designed to be powerful and to me quite spiritual. But I'm still playing with space here with the shapes, and currently I'm trying to make this painting into a rectangle again. It's one of the most recent things I've been doing this past week, actually. But I guess I kept making shapes. This is on paper, gesso on paper. I was doing skulls. They kind of answered, this existential ideas, mortality, thinking about death, holes, kind of had everything. Learning about color, how it goes together. This one has gills. And I made a freestanding painting, a few of these. This one is kind of held down by a piece of coral. And on the back it says the earth is flat. But I kind of thought it looked like a prop, like a rock. But then I started making rectangles again because I just wanted to paint more, and I didn't want to just do drawings. And so I was looking at Frank Stella's work, and I really liked this series he did on Polish villages. It's about wooden synagogues that burned down during World War II. What I learned from these by copying these, and this isn't a Frank Stella, the one part is, Frank Stella part's up there. I kind of made him into a flag. That one's not a great photo, but you can kind of see, and I learned a lot about his precision and his color, the balance, and the compositions, and how the forms come together, and how important the littlest thing can be to a painting. And that might have been my biggest takeaway from these. So this whole time I've been living in Bushwick. When I moved there, I was just blown away by the amount of trash. It's kind of an industrial area, it was at the time, kind of an industrial vacuum area. And they didn't clean the streets. You'd walk around and you never know what you're going to see. And so I just started collecting it, packaging it, giving it away a lot. I still have a few of these. But I just started accumulating a lot of stuff. And even when I was in graduate school, I was accumulating things to put in the paintings, just stickers, anything that stuck I liked or had shininess to it. And they were all in this file on this desk, and I just had to get rid of this desk. It became like too big and heavy in my studio, and I wanted more mobility. Pardon, let me take a sip. So I just kind of got rid of the desk and just made substrates out of all the junk left over, and I had this postcard that says Indian symbols on it, and this is one of them. And let's see, I think this one is spider, which means good luck. This is the morning star, guidance, wisdom. And I think they're called, the postcard says Indian symbols, but I think it's mostly kind of more universal. Rain, good prospects. Up in the top left, I was putting oregano on the paintings. I don't know why, but that's oregano. And about this time, I started switching from canvas and staples to linen and copper tacks. And this is a recent painting, but I was like, I better show them my sides. So that's what the sides of my work look like now. I made this in 2005. I wanted to have landscape, but also a figure. And so I made this stick bug figure lounging by a pool. And I liked how it touched the corners, the edges, kind of was playing with the form of the painting, the object of the painting. And he has sunglasses on and a little keychain for the pool, his pool locker on his elbow. But this was kind of, for me, I felt like a breakthrough painting. Pardon me for a second. So I made quite a few of these. I'm not going to show you that many. I went to Central Park and got some sticks and made a stick bug. That's his cute head. And stick bugs don't even have antenna, but that didn't bother me. They also have 6 legs. Don't worry about it. This one's gouache on paper. The stick bug is here too. He's holding a styrofoam cup. But this one, this painting is called Lascaux. Up in the top part is a Taurus painting from Lascaux, part of it at least. It only has one horn. I was reading this book by Bataille about Lascaux, and his idea was that the eye and the dots were part of the Taurus constellation in the sky. And this is supposed to be in a cave. And I was thinking about, well, these guys 30,000 years ago went into a cave underground, deep, deep, deep in a dark cave, and we're imagining the stars way out there, and with all this earth between. And I just thought that was so beautiful, so human. So I started using that form there. I call them stalactites, stalagmites. They're kind of those cone shapes, because it was a good way to have light in the work and kind of define space. And they were really useful because they're pretty much the same form, whether they're up or down. So you could really play with space. So this is a painting I made that you can put both ways. It works upside down. And you can still see part of the stick bug there, but it's going away. And then here, the stick bug is pretty much gone, but you can kind of still feel some of the form of it. Not sure what year this is, but I think around 2008 or 9 or 10. And I feel like my work has kind of settled since this time. I feel like I can relate to this now for what I'm doing right now in my studio. Sort of after all this experimentation, I felt like I was making something more cohesive for myself. But I still experimented a lot. This is part of a glare series. I'm interested in optics and the phenomena of looking. And this also has little surfers in it too. The top left, there's one. It's kind of coming down the painting, surfing. This has a de Kooning calendar making up a couple of the stalactites. I love de Kooning. This one has drips, and it has a CD, other things. And then this was a very kind of other breakthrough painting for me. This one's called Pinbot Activate. When I was in high school, I worked at a restaurant and a mini mall with a movie theater, and next to that was an arcade. So I could play this one pinball game for a long time on one quarter, and it's called Pinbot. And so when I made this is probably 2011. I was maybe being a little nostalgic or something, but it had lights. It had that array of lights, that specific color combination. It had stuff happening. It was active. It had spheres. It had stuff going on the edges. And then most importantly, and most serendipitously really, is it was on, pinball games are on a tilt. They're tilted planes. And so it kind of, all this made sense to me. It sort of sealed in what I was doing and allowing the drips, allowing gravity to be a part of the painting I was making. So I made a series of these. When I make series, I typically, I don't do them all at once. It can last for years and years. They'll just sort of arise. This is another series, Christmas trees. I love Christmas lights. I love the Big Dipper. I like iconic things. And the cool thing about a Big Dipper is that it's sort of like the signature of living in our solar system. It's like everybody that sees this, they're from our solar system, basically. It's unique to us, so it's kind of like our sign in a way. This is mirror and gold leaf making the Big Dipper. This one's just just gold leaf with red, green, and blue and white. So I was just trying different ways to make things glow. This one's pretty loose. This one's called Pink Dipper. This one is almost like the sky glows more than the stars. This one I kind of made it so you can rotate it, like with the seasons. So when I see a Big Dipper, like in the night sky, it's like kind of like takes my breath away. It's like I get a sort of bodily response. Same thing with a spider. I like see a spider in the corner of my eye. I kind of get I see it with my whole body, not just my brain, my eyes, and I like that. And so I try and play with that. And I like paleoanthropology. This is straight out of a textbook I read on the subject. It's an illustration where they found this ravine with a bunch of skulls with, these two holes in the head. So it was a leopard eating Homo habilis. So I made about 8 of these. These are 77 by 57 inches each. And they line up. You can put 2 together and kind of makes one. But I was using symbols on the sides, just trying to do whatever. This one has the Big Dipper in it. Mirrored sunglasses, a bat, the curve of the planet in front of the moon. And this one, you can kind of see a pinball score readout at the top, but it's in blue. I mostly make them in gold leaf these days. But so you can see the pinball flipper. You can see a rock in the middle. I started using string, mustard seeds. I should mention that. I use string and mustard seeds in every painting and have for about 15 years. I also use gold leaf a lot. I go on travel and I'll pick, get sea glass from Morocco, or a coin from Madagascar, or a rock from Palatine Hill, or, coral from Japan. Just throw it all together so it's like this mishmash of the earth kind of in one spot. And you don't have to know any of that. But it's there, and I know it, and I like it. To me, it's like making a charm or something, a good luck charm. I want my paintings to provide good luck to whoever's looking at them all the time. So this one's more explicitly, I guess, pinball, 25 cents. Oh, went the wrong way. So I use stickers, words, accumulation of things, stuff I get in the mail, calendars. I like information, even if it's dumb information. I started using thermometers a lot about, 6 or 7 years ago. And now those are in most of the paintings. On this one, I can't talk, I gotta stay here. In the middle, there's sort of these weird marks. And I was like, oh, it kind of looks like somebody doing a ski jump. So I made it into that. I made a ramp. Sorry about the cough. I started putting a lot of flags in the work on the edges. I really like flags. They kind of they're just beautiful colors, but they also convey information. This is playing with space and light, and I found a photograph on the ground, used that. I don't want to get into, I like details, but I don't want to go over them right now. But I like having details in my work. I used to be much more interested in keeping things real simple and efficient, but not anymore. I don't care if it's a long novel, a narrative. There's some gold leaf numbers up there, readouts from a pinball game. This one's called Far Red. Then I thought, well, what if I just use color, and maybe color's enough? And so I kind of did that, and I do honestly think color is almost enough. Sorry about my cough. So I started kind of making colors correspond with the edges, with the frame behind it. This one has 2 colors. Things kind of look like a boat, so I made it look more like a boat. Whatever was happening on the surface, I just kind of went with it and allowed it to look like something. This one has 4 panels. I started bringing some of the stuff I was doing on the edges and put it in the middle on the stretcher bar parts. And that's I did a Sumi ink drawing of Yoda without really knowing what Yoda looks like underneath. But it took a lot of practice to get these colors right. I did a lot of studies. And color's tricky because it's not just color you're dealing with the intensity of it, the thickness of it, there's so many factors, the texture of it, that it's really almost impossible to know what you're going to do ahead of time. This one has a spiral. another spiral. This is pretty recent. Yeah, I went to Italy. I went to Florence and Rome, and this was influenced by that. Just the fabulous work there. Wow, all the altar pieces and things like that. And this one also has sports cards. I've been using baseball cards in the work for a while. Someone in our building had left a box of baseball cards. And at parties, we would have drink and draw parties, and we would just put them out there, and people would draw sunglasses on them or disfigure them somehow, and it was a lot of fun. There's me a couple years ago in my studio. There's another series I do. It started off as Mounds of America, but now I call it my Father and Son series. Kind of a return to the red, green, blue. I like the space at the bottom of this painting. You can see stickers. I love animals. You know, I think that one says Price of Right. I almost went to a Price of Right once, but I still have the ticket from it, but I didn't go. One of my favorite shows growing up, though. I love Price is Right. This is a red painting with a cobra. It's called Cobra Kiss. And the cobra's nose is almost right where your eyes are if you're standing. This is 77 by 57 inches. I was in a show at Michael David back when he had his Bogart space. He had just renovated. It was huge. It was fun. It was with my friend Ben Pritchard, 2-person show. I couldn't find any install shots of this painting without me in it or Chris Martin, that's a good one. But yeah, I like this painting. It was really fun to work big. And one of the greatest things about being in New York as an artist is just all the other artists living here and getting to meet them and learn about them and get their support. You know, it's really important. I was terrified to move to New York. I was really, really scared. I was kind of I was like a cyst when I first got here. Just a ball. I just wanted to survive. But I feel better now. Returning to black and white. I kind of feel like I get to just do whatever I want now. Return to the car. I really like El Greco. That one postcard up there flips up, and there's, I forget what's underneath there, maybe a dinosaur or something drawing. And so I had a show last year this time, actually, opened up in February at Peninsula Art Space. They're down in the Two Bridges area. So it's a very narrow space. But, they encourage me, they're like, oh, let's put in some bigger paintings. So it's cool. All right, let's see if I can get this going. This is a short video that somebody at the gallery made. But it kind of gives you an idea of the work, as you move, it changes. It's only a minute long. You can kind of see the mirror shine a little there. Oop, there we go. And this is the last slide. This was also in the show. This one's called Color Bowl, and this is an example of one of the shaped things I was doing earlier, the stadium, and trying to make it into a rectangle. And I work in my studio almost every day now, and I'm having more fun than ever. And thank you guys for listening. Questions?
Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, if
you.
anyone has a question, please just raise your hand and we'll bring you the microphone.
Hi, thank you so much for being here tonight. Could you talk a little bit about the paper substrate paintings you made with the symbols on top? How did you make the paper substrates? And also the paintings where you had car lights and other mufflers in your work. How did you affix those to your substrates as well?
Yeah, good questions. The substrates were tape, glue, paint. Those drawings were kind of done out of frustration. I was kind of fed up with, I don't know what was happening in my studio. I wasn't satisfied with something. And so I made all that, and I think sometimes that can be great when you're frustrated and you have to work through something. And so I don't remember exactly how, but just any which way, I tried to make that substrate all stick together. The headlight, the car headlight things were put on with plastic roofing cement, which is the technical term, but it's just tar. It had a really bad smell. I wouldn't recommend it. I put almost everything on now with gesso. Just gesso likes to stick to gesso, and yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Tim.
How you doing?
Great now. Sorry about all the coffee.
No, man, that's great. You did a great job. I'm here not only as a painter, but a fan. As you know, I have a couple of your works, and I look at them all the time. And one of the things as I was listening to you that I've always been confused about, but I'm starting to come around to being refreshed by, is how much you don't need to talk about the stuff that's going on in the painting. And what I mean by that is that, like, you do an excellent job combining both painterly qualities and techniques along with assemblage and found materials in a way that sort of invites into an interpretation, but also sort of confuses me in the same way that I would find confusion if I was in that cave at L'Esquire Chauvet looking at images, trying to figure out what were they thinking. And I just wanted to know if you could reflect just a little bit more about how we as people that approach your works could learn to read the works maybe a little bit more how you want us to. I know you don't, but I'm wondering if, like, you know, if there was a Cliff Notes version, like what can we get? What's the insider reading of some of your work, imagery and inner symbology?
Yeah, we do bring all our own things to the work. I believe very strongly in the power, the transformative power of art, especially painting. To me, it's an amazing form. I love going to, if I'm in a new city, I want to see it's in their museum. I'm just a fan of painting and looking, and I want it to be deep, but I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah.
Hello, this is a strange question maybe, but so looking at your work, the way you use color with transparency and opacity and thickness, it strikes me that it looks really amazing projected, like with the light of a projector. And then I just looked at it on my phone and I felt the same way. Like what you're painting looks really good on a digital screen. And I'm just wondering if you think about that, or because you said Big Dipper, lights or stars in the sky, but like what do you think about how your work relates to a screen, I guess?
I sought out colors and paints and played with them, and I was definitely after a transparency. It's because, lights and stained glass and things like that always I connected with. I really, enjoyed looking at. So I just would find paints that did that. Not all of them do, but a lot do. And I just find kind of, how thick to make them. And I'd say they kind of look like this in person, people have said they look good on a screen, and that's just like a bonus,
I was just wondering about the thermometers, and did you have a particular temperature, or did it vary? Or I happen to have a little thermometer with me. It's 68 degrees in the bathroom. I looked it up. I don't usually do that. I just today happened to have a little thermometer in my bag, so it made me wonder about what temperature you were recording.
I initially got the thermometers. They were science testing kits from a school, so I got a whole bunch of them. Were given to me, and sometimes I would put like 2 or 3 on a painting, and they would be close to the same, but not always lining up. I like information on a painting. I like that it's practical, and it's almost always pushed to the sides. It's kind of the same with the word. I spoke about where does a word start and begin, its meaning. It kind of goes like along with that. Like in a painting, that the sides of the painting have like kind of information, but what's happening in the middle is maybe a little bit more nebulous. Maybe that also answers the question, Tim. And I put coins on a painting. And it's like if the painting has any worth at all, it's at least the worth of this coin or the gold. You could scrape it. It's like it's sort of this practical consideration, but it's not a real consideration. But I just like that. And I got some different types of thermometers recently, so I'm excited to use those. The kind that turn colors. But yeah, I like calendars. Would just get junk mail and like from previous tenants and like open it up and see what weird stuff was in there. And I just like kind of random stuff being in there. But the real thing is, to me, the paint. Yeah.
There's actually an online question that's also about materials, but specifically the types of paint that you use.
I use oil. Oil. I always just say oil and mixed media on linen. I once used to list everything, mustard seed, string, and the gallerist was like, no. Mixed media. That's all you need to say. But yeah, I use oil paint. I use it very thin, and so it lasts a long time. So I try and get the good stuff.
I had a quick question. You use a lot of unconventional materials. I was just wondering if any of them have, personal significance to you, like the mustard seed, string, oregano. Is it just the nature behind it that you're trying to bring into your work, or something more?
No, that's a good question. A lot of things just happen to be there by chance, and the string is on there by chance. The mustard seeds I kind of put there by chance, and it's kind of a chance generator. It kind of gets things going for me. As far as personal, like they didn't start off personal, but as I was using these things, I learned about them, and I learned like what a mustard seed is. I knew it was in the Bible. Turns out it's in almost any ancient text because It was before they knew about atoms, they would call something very, very small, they would compare it to a mustard seed because it's nice and round, a nice little sphere. And they serve many purposes. I like having struggle in my work. It's something to struggle against, you know. It's not a perfectly smooth surface. I can't control everything, and I like that. Kind of makes me feel more free. And yeah, and so in the Bible, the Old Testament, it's like faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. And to me, like, painting is like you have to put something into it as an observer to get something out of it. And so there's this faith aspect to any art, I think. And so I like, things like that just sort of kind of get back into it. That wasn't on purpose, but certain things stick, and no pun intended. But yeah, I just keep repeating myself, and in the process at least.
I love your work. I was curious about the stick bug. It felt like it came in like right as you were really coming into your own, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts about it as a kind of spirit animal or how you related to it.
Because it was not a real stick bug, I had to kind of make up my own story of like how it lost its legs and why it has antenna. Yeah, it was a skateboarding accident, I think. They're like, again, I learned about stick bugs, and they're amazing creatures, and I've seen them in the wild now, and it's like it is kind of like a spirit animal for me if I see one. It's like incredible. But they're interesting in that they make themselves rare on purpose. Like a lot of insects just have masses and masses amounts of babies. Stick bugs are different. If they did that, the birds would just try and eat every stick around. So stick bugs have less babies, and so they make themselves more rare, so they hide better. And I kind of like the aspect of a stick bug hiding in a landscape, but it's still there. I think a lot of things that I do have like more than one reason for existing.
And I would say the thermometer to me seems to have an aspect of changeability to it also.
Yeah. Kind of like it's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for your talk. I'm curious about the relationship with the rectangle. This one reminds me of the drum, and I wonder if you feel like you've completely gone back to the beginning, but without, having to use like an odd-shaped exterior space.
Yeah. No, that's true. This started off as a shaped painting years ago, and I'm revisiting it. And if you think about like the spiral, like our planet in our solar system, we're orbiting around the sun, but the sun's also moving in the universe, and so we are making that's our big form that we're all a part of, this spiral. And I feel like that form has come into my work and my studio practice a lot. And so it's like, I don't see it so much as like a circular thing as like, I'm just spiraling things together. And I used to have like, I better save that idea for later. I better do that. I don't want to, that's a good idea, but do this first and then you can get to it. But now it's like, just if you have an idea, just do it. Don't worry. There's always going to be another idea coming from it. But yeah, so I feel like I do spiral things in. I fold things that I felt good about or satisfied with back into the work as part of the process over and over.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Mike. I'm also coughing. I just want to say I really admire that your early success with the car paintings did not go to your head. and that you stayed humble, and you know, a lot of artists, when they get success early, they just stick with that. And you kept moving.
Yeah. I didn't just stick to cars.
I really admire that. I also really admire the way you throw anything and everything into your paintings. To me, that sort of indicates like an embrace of the world.
Oh, cool, cool.
And yeah, I wanted to ask too, you mentioned the lucky charm, the talisman quality. I wonder if you can talk a little bit more about that. And the other thing was, someone just asked if there's any personal connection with the objects, but I thought, you know, you love to put baseball cards in. I know you play baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's one right there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll leave the rest of the answer to you.
The personal matters, and it's not that my life's interesting so much as everybody has an interesting life, you know, their own specific experiences, ways of doing things, and to me that's just a tool to use to make your work unique, is to include what's around you, to embrace your life, you know, no matter what it's been like, and use it as a tool. I think I forgot part of your question, Rick.
Just a little bit more on talismans or lucky charms.
Right. There's a history of, you know, in every culture of, you know, doing stuff like that, bringing together, like making charmed objects or special objects, sacred objects, and think of like altar pieces, things like that. I want it to be related to that, but I don't want to. There's no specifics involved. It's like I don't know how everything's operating. It's more like maybe it will operate. I don't know. I just try it.
I love your presentation. It's very
thanks so much.
interesting, very colorful. I wondered how you price your paintings.
I don't know how.
How much are they?
They vary.
Can you give us a range?
No.
No?
I guess that's in flux. But something like this size, I think that the painting, this might have sold at my last show. It's quite small. I think it was like 1,200 or something. No, it was double. It was like 2,000. But yeah, you get half. I don't know. It was through a gallery. But yeah, I'm not a big seller of my work, but then that's okay. I guess I don't know. Yeah, that's a hard part. I don't like the business aspect of making paintings. It's, feel like I should leave that in other people's hands.
Maybe one more question? Anyone?
Hello.
Hi.
I love like the references from your past.
Thanks.
Does that still invoke an emotional response, reflecting, like if you look at your old works, like does that still invoke an emotional response? Does it bring you back to being in San Diego, sleeping on that mountain that you talked about? Like, does that still happen?
Definitely, like what I was talking about, like walking around and remembering that I'm walking on a planet. But yeah, I was 19 when I decided I'm gonna be a painter, you know. So, and I'm 53 now, almost 54, and so it's been a long time, and I don't really get too nostalgic, I guess. Being in New York, I like to travel, but you can't just travel. You have to set roots somewhere, and so New York City has provided a great place to be and have roots, where it's still very a dynamic place to be, and all kinds of things are happening. So I'm just like, I like it, but it's not. I don't know about getting that emotional. Yeah, I was emotional on my way walking here tonight.
Also, another question is, are you drawn to certain materials rather than others? Like, if something catches your eye, would you rather use that compared to going out and finding materials?
Yeah, in every aspect, probably. I've stuck with oil because I really love how I know how to use it in a lot of ways over the years. I don't collect as much trash off the ground, but I still do, and it's very selective, and I kind of know what's going to work more now, and it's really easy to accumulate stuff, so I'm careful there. So yeah, it's a balance. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike.
All right. Thank you, guys.